This podcast was originally live-streamed on the NonSequitur Show on YouTube. New episodes air weekdays, Monday through Friday, at 8 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/NonSequitur Show. Make sure you never miss a live stream by visiting www.nonsecshow.com/schedule. For the latest news, polls and updates throughout the day, follow us on Twitter at NonSecShow or Facebook.com/NonSecShow. That's NonSeq Show. If you'd like to get exclusive content, bi-weekly private hangouts with Kyle and Steve, backstage access to chat with guests after shows hosted on your channel and much more, become a Patreon saint of NonSequitur. It ensures we continue to improve our show and brings you into the process at the same time. Visit patreon.com/NonSequitur today while the limited spots are still available.
The following podcast is intended for those who believe bold ideas are righteous, unique perspectives are gospel, and strong opinions are sacred. This is Non-Sequitur. Never follow. And now, here are your hosts, Kyle Curtis and Steve McRae.
And usually I would enter in my witty welcome to you guys, but Steve just demanded that he be the one to introduce the show tonight. So without further ado, here is Steve McRae.
Dead people phone home today? That what we're going to be doing?
Oh, brilliant, Steve. See, I switched it over to Steve to shine for a moment. That's how he does you guys. I apologize. But welcome, guys. You are watching Non-Sequitur. I'm Kyle Curtis. That was Steve McRae. Bravo, Steve. I'm proud of you. Yesterday, you did fantastic. And then today, you're just not on the game.
It's going to be a dichotomy,
That's true. Joining us tonight, finally, I was telling him that I have been looking forward to this show before we began. We have Dr. Mark Pitstick. Hello, sir. How are you today?
Awesome. Good evening.
And I will officially introduce you here in just a second. We always do announcements at the top, but I will give you a better introduction than that once we finish with that. Just to let you guys know, coming up as far as shows go, we have David Patt, the 60 discussion on the death penalty should be abolished. We're hoping on Andrew Rappaport, for the love of God, answers Steve's challenge, because if not, Steve is just going to have an aneurysm. Steve, do you want to map out what you're going to be talking about, whether he shows up or not?
Yeah, sure. So on Sunday at 4:00 Eastern, we're going to be going through many of Andrew Rappaport's many claims that he's had over the years that he's denied claiming. And I have challenged him because I wanted to debate him on a numerous amount of issues, including plutonium halos, younger creationism, age of the earth, his claim that Dr. Mary Schweitzer was an atheist, his claim that the Oort cloud produced blue giants. Yes, he actually claimed that the Oort cloud was posited by science to explain blue giants. I said that I would debate him on evolution. He said, let's do it. He wants to debate on evolution as a theory. I want to debate his claim that evolution is only a theory, but he wants it to be evolution as a theory. I told him, fine, I will figure it out. I have a deductive logical proof that evolution is not a theory using some logic. So I'm going to debate him on that. And now I've given him everything he's wanted. I gave him the forum. I gave him the moderator. Shannon Q would moderate. Everything I've given him. So he has no excuse to run now. And he's just he's trying to change it to something else. So if you're on Twitter, go message to Andrew. Steve's, capitulated. He said he will debate you on your topic that he wanted, that he's been bugging me for. And I said, fine. But he's supposed to go on air tonight. And I've already told him I got this show to do. And he thinks that for some reason I said it was going to go on his show. I will go on his show. only after he debates me, and I've said that all along. So if he's saying that I should be on a show, he's just outright lying again. So we're going to be pointing out all the lies that he's had over the many years that he's been on the internet. That's what I'm going to be doing.
For the love of my
glorious.
my Twitter feed and my notifications, please settle this already, because I get way too many notifications from the spat that you guys are having. Okay, so there with we'll just join us on Sunday at 4 for that, whichever way it goes. And then, of course, on Saturday, we've got SJ and Frustrated Atheist at 11. They're going to be debating on communism and atheism. And then Ad Homies, as always, at 7. So big weekend. Okay, so joining us tonight to discuss the advances in cell phone, we have Dr. Mark Pitchstick. He has a pre-med degree. He's a graduate in theology and pastoral counseling, a master's in clinical psychology, a doctorate in chiropractic health, and you hosted a podcast called Ask the Soul Doctors. I discovered that just today, actually. So quite the resume, I would say. But we're glad that you're here, and welcome.
Thank you.
So I guess the best way to start out would be there's a quote that always stuck with me, and it was from Carl Sagan, and he said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And I don't think that I've heard a more extraordinary claim than the one that Soul Phone intends to produce results for. So can you kind of introduce everyone to what the concept of Soul Phone is briefly, because I'm sure we'll come back to it, and then I want to touch on like your personal journey to get to where you started working on Soul Phone, but just so everybody's kind of aware what exactly is Soul Phone.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you used Dr. Sagan's quote, because that's one that Dr. Schwartz uses in a lot of his writings, and he's very aware of that, and that's why he's come up with extraordinary evidence. So a little background about this. I'll be referring to Dr. Schwartz a lot because he's the head guy. I'm the director of the Soul Phone Foundation. We've been working together a couple years. He asked me to be the kind of the face of the organization because he's a busy research scientist. And his credentials are Cornell University, master's and PhD at Harvard, where he's a professor in psychophysiology, tenured professor at Yale, where he and a handful of people started behavioral medicine. He was director of the first Yale Mind-Body Institute, 450 scientific papers, 11 academic books, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this guy's a scientist. Well, he went to the University of Arizona 20 years ago and started doing research with mediums. He was interested in the question, as are many of us, is there really a life after death, or is that just wishful thinking, an inability to comprehend nothingness? And he found that indeed many mediums were mediocre, some were fake, but there were some superstars. And he's found about 30 so far, and we're talking double, triple blind studies replicated by other universities and institutes. Other universities have done EEG studies on these mediums, and they have something like a 90-95% hit rate. This is totally controlled environment where not even the experimenters know who the sitters are. They're in separate rooms. There's no way the mediums could have obtained who the sitters were and obtained information beforehand. He always ran control groups, people like me, for example, who are not a medium, and they're basically guessing, your father's dead, his name was Carl, etc. They had a 23% success rate, excuse me, about what you expect from guessing. These mediums, again, had around a 90% hit rate. The chance of that happening randomly are 1 in 1 trillion, which is off the charts for statistical significance. So again, that was 20 years ago, and he wrote about that in his book, The Afterlife Experiment. Well, once it became clear that these mediums were indeed in communication with, quote, deceased people who really aren't deceased, he then started looking at, is there a way to use technology? Because he's worked with high-tech equipment throughout his career, measuring electromagnetic waves that emanate from the heart and from the brain, for example, and began that 11 years ago with help from some of these mediums. Up to 10 different mediums independently would let him know that people like, and hold on to your seats, listeners, Carl Sagan, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, and others, David Bohm, were interested in helping him with this technology. So he would receive bits of information, sometimes just a single word that the medium didn't even know if it was a real word, but it was, and it was exactly what Dr. Schwartz needed at the time to put this together. Excuse me. Dr. Schwartz also, over the years, has had a team, being at the university, a senior professor there, electrical engineers, optical physicists, software specialists. So he's had top help all along the way with that. So between Dr. Schwartz's knowledge, his earthly team, and then this, what he calls the A team, these, quote, deceased luminaries, things have come together for what we are calling collectively the soul phone. Now, the soul phone is anticipated to be 4 different devices. The first one is the soul switch. This is just like a light switch, on or off, or like what computers are based on, 0 or 1, no or yes. And so this allows then a no or yes answer from what we're calling post-material persons. And we, in doing this work, we had to create some new terms because so much of the language that's existed is wrong, death, afterlife, spirits, and so on. And it's just so archaic and has different meanings to different people. And also, as we go worldwide, we have no idea how those kinds of words will be translated in different languages. So post-material person, people who are no longer living in the material world on Earth, but are nonetheless very real. They have physical nature from the various glimpses we've gotten. He just completed what's called stage 2 prototype of the soul switch, which means it's working. He is able to identify through a series of questions, what he calls 20 questions, for the personal identification test. So let's say he's dealing with Albert Einstein. He would ask, is your first name Albert? He would expect the answer to be yes. Is your last name Jones? He would expect the answer to be no. Same questions about birth date, death, physical death date, where he was born, and so on. And so 100% answers correctly on that gives you a good idea of who you're dealing with. The second battery of tests with the soul switch is called knowledge test, in which he would ask a series of little known, very complex questions. So again, for Einstein, was the following formula part of your theory of relativity? Yes or no? Now, all this has been computer automated, so the questions and answers can occur while none of the experimenters are even in the building. So this removes questions about experimenter bias. Again, this has been replicated and shown highly statistical significance to be working. Now, that's not very exciting, but the next device is, because as you may know, a keyboard is just an assembly of 43 switches. If you push an L, for example, that's a yes for the L, a no for everything else. So he considers it to be a relatively easy engineering feat once the Type 3 prototype of the Soul switch is ready to then create a Soul keyboard, which will allow typing and texting, much like we do now. And he expects that to be by the end of next year. The third anticipated device is called Soul Voice, allowing hearing, like we hear over a phone. We're used now to talking to someone in China. We don't think much of it. Well, it turns out our loved ones who have passed on are likely closer than China, even though most people can't sense them with their 5 senses. And the fourth device, Soul Video, like we're doing now, Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, seeing and hearing.
So you got, I guess you probably expect that when someone hears that for either the first time or they're not immersed in the side that you are. I'm just a skeptical person, so I come at it